This day is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Make another smart choice with Auto Quote Explorer to compare rates from multiple car insurance companies all at once. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy. I want to take a moment to tell you about the Electronic Frontier Foundation and their podcast, How to Fix the Internet. For 35 years, the Electronic Frontier Foundation has been fighting to make sure that when you go online, your rights go with you. EFF has rescued podcasts from patent trolls, helped encrypt the web to protect your privacy, and prevailed in lawsuits against government secrecy and surveillance. I am a huge fan of their work, and can I let you in on a little something? The laptop that I'm recording this promo on right now has an EFF sticker on it covering the camera. I'm looking at it right now, and I would say at least once a week when I'm working at a coffee shop or something, someone will notice it and say, "Oh, wow, I really love EFF." I have long admired and supported their work to protect our rights online, and I am really excited to tell you about how to fix the internet. If you care about digital rights, privacy, or even just have questions and concerns about how to make technology work for us rather than the other way around, How to Fix the Internet and EFF are here to help. Season 6 is out right now. You can visit EFF.org/podcast to listen. That's EFF.org/podcast for How to Fix the Internet and to join EFF. Hello and welcome to This Day, a history show from Radiotopia. My name is Jody Avirgan. This day, June 20th, 1975, 50 years ago, it is the summer of Jaws. Steven Spielberg's shark epic was released nationwide, became an absolute sensation. It basically invented the summer blockbuster and changed the movie industry forever. Look, listeners, there's going to be no shortage of Jaws at 50 coverage, podcasts and articles and screenings and so forth. One of my favorite podcasts, movie podcast, Blank Check, recently did a big 2-hour plus episode about it. Funny enough, because it had such a huge impact on the movie industry, people maybe overlooked that it is in many ways just like a perfect film. If you haven't seen it recently, go watch it. It's incredibly acted and paced and directed. But we are a history and politics podcast, not a movie podcast. So we want to focus on some of those bigger impacts culturally, politically of Jaws. In particular, two things. One, the depiction of government and leadership in the movie, which is really interesting. And two, the shark frenzy, anti-shark frenzy that it set off. So here, as always, Nicole Hammer of Vanderbilt and Kellie Carter-Jackson of Wellesley. Hello there.
Hello, Jody.
Hey there.
Yeah, to me, Jaws is one of those things where it's like, everyone knows it as a blockbuster, and it's almost so in the culture that people don't actually stop and watch it and realize, like, my God, this is such a good movie. So I would encourage people to go just rewatch it as a film. But let's start with the shark thing. The fear of sharks that it set off. And I will tell you that my sort of instinct in these moments is, there's this trope out there that Jaws set off this shark fever and everyone was scared of sharks and it really ruined the reputation of sharks. And there's that part of me that wants to like push back at that and be like, it kind of did. It kind of did.
Kellie and I were just talking before we started taping about our parents watching Jaws. And my parents would tell me, because we watch Jaws probably every summer, but they would tell me about watching it in the theater when it came out and being terrified of going to the beach, because they would go down to the Gulf Coast, whenever they could, every other summer or so. And they didn't want to get in the water.
Yeah.
Like it was terrifying. And that's, I think, a sign of how effective the movie was. Like a good horror film gets you like on an instinctual level.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember seeing Jaws as a kid, but also I think what really stuck with me is when I was, 11, we went to Florida, went to Universal Studios, and they had a like Jaws theme park, basically.
Yeah.
And so you'd be on this boat, like riding along, and then this like, technological Jaws thing.
Animatronic
animatronic Jaws, would jump out of the water and they would like spray you with water and everyone would be like, ah! And it was terrifying. I mean, terrifying. But it was like some of my best memories as a kid too.
Oh yeah. Well, so I went on the same ride, had the same exact memory. And, look, there's a lot going on here. Well, first off, obviously, go listen to the movie podcast, which break down how there were so many technical issues with the shark itself that's the reason they don't actually show the shark until the very end, which ends up being kind of the most sort of like impactful thing in this movie. It's this psychological terror for so long before you actually see the thing. And that really heightens it up. I think Spielberg initially was like, we'll show the shark the first time. And then it just didn't work for like technical reasons. Also, like, you don't make a movie with this as your central threat if there isn't also some sort of inherent thing that so people have been afraid of sharks for a long time. There's galeophobia is the fear of sharks. Like, you're picking this villain for a reason, but then you are obviously heightening it. And I mean, the so-called Jaws effect is real. I mean, in 1975, like, beach attendance was way down. Maybe that was because people were actually in the movies, because for the first summer there was a summer blockbuster phenomenon. But like, it does seem to have done that. And moreover, I think the media phenomenon side of this, the outsized effect that shark attacks, which still remain very, very rare, the outsized effect that it has for the media is one of the big legacies of this film. It proved that it can be a fodder for attention.
Oh, sure.
That it works, right? Yeah. I think there was a study done that showed that 96% of depictions of sharks are negative, are about how dangerous they are. And that's what's so interesting, Jody, because I guess there is maybe like, yes, sharks can be a danger to humans, but like, bears can be a danger to humans, but they're counterbalanced by the teddy bear and by this kind of like charismatic megafauna thing where they're cute and cuddly and fuzzy. And there just isn't like a strong cultural trope until Left Shark that is like, look, sharks are these like cute, cuddly, cool things as opposed to a danger.
I just feel like they get like bad PR. Like, I just remembering like there are certain mammals like, orca whales that we just absolutely love. And then which also have, like gnarly teeth and the whole 9 yards. And yet we don't look at them in the same way.
And certainly, obviously, like, sharks don't hold grudges. Sharks don't come back for more.
Like crows.
Exactly. They don't behave in the way that the shark in Jaws behaves. And they don't target human beings unless something has gone really, really wrong, right? Like a lot of animals, it's just like they mostly just want to live their lives and get left alone.
I should also say, and we don't have enough meat on our bodies either. Like, normally if sharks bite, they're like, that's not enough there for a meal. So they typically only bite once if they do bite, because it's just not a lot to, it's not their natural food source.
Too gamey.
Yeah.
We should take a moment before we then talk about the sort of political parables of Jaws. We should take a moment to point out that like shark populations have been absolutely decimated over the last 50 years. This is not always at the feet of Jaws, though I think our sympathy for sharks is not really as big as it is for maybe some other creatures. But, overfishing, shark hunting, the ecological, changes have really, really decimated the shark population.
And once you've presented sharks as kind of the great threat, right, as opposed to whales and other things that were hunted in the ocean in an earlier era, there is this kind of, I can prove my manliness by going off and killing a shark. And again, that's not the cause of the rapid decimation of this population. That was largely giant kills for food, but it is part of it. Right, the shark trophy hunting that really picks up in the mid 1970s is about this idea that these are so dangerous, the most dangerous thing you could possibly kill, and I've killed it is a big part of the culture.
Risk is the show where people tell true stories they never thought they'd dare to share. A podcast all about human connection and radical honesty. All through June for Pride Month, Risk will be featuring the stories of LGBTQ folks from all walks of life. You'll laugh, cry, and maybe even end up feeling a little bit better. Go get Risk on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.
When you check in on the news each day, doesn't it kind of feel like every story is a head-spinning economic story? Tariffs, meme coins, budget fights, not to mention groceries and gas prices. Economics is everywhere, fueling our lives even where you least expect it. You're a This Day listener, which means I know you love context and hidden history. Well, Planet Money is the show for you. Planet Money recently did an episode that I absolutely loved, all about the more uncommon economic indicators being discussed on social media. Not just the obvious like prices, but sales of lipstick are going up, babysitter buns are coming back into style. A show like Planet Money is built to dig into all the little ways that economics shapes our lives. Every episode of Planet Money is fun, illuminating, and pretty short. 20-ish minutes, and you'll walk away knowing a lot more about how the world really works. Listen now to Planet Money from NPR.
I think it's helpful to have some of the statistics, because like the numbers for me were staggering. To know that like 79% of great white sharks, 65% of tiger sharks, 89% of hammerhead sharks, their populations are decimated, just decimated. Mm-hmm. That they're killing roughly 100 million sharks a year is just, those numbers are so staggering to me. It's hard to think that, people's consumption of them would even be that high. But the shark fin itself is considered, a delicacy, especially in Asian cultures, for weddings and ceremonies and celebrations. And so I don't think I've appreciated just how much they were being targeted.
It's really reminiscent of those late 19th century images of like buffalo skulls piled stories high, where it was just kind of a clear cutting of an animal's population. And I think that's what you're seeing with sharks over the last 50 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's estimates that 100 million sharks are killed every year for their fins for consumption. That's 6 to 8% of all sharks annually. And then obviously overfishing in general decimates their food source, which leads to a decline in the population as well. Mm-hmm. And you can't really put that at the foot of Jaws, other than, Jaws maybe, again, made these creatures less sympathetic. And so you would get less of a kind of public rallying around the cause. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's turn to some of the other political and cultural things going on in this movie. And I'll lay out a couple of theories, and you can tell me which ones you feel like are there or are lasting. But obviously, I think during COVID, a lot of people started to point out, Donald Trump and the Trump administration are acting like the mayor in Jaws, right? Just basically like, there's this threat, we know it's coming, but everything's fine, folks. Keep the beaches open, literally, in both cases, and just like we can sort of will our way through this. And of course, the lesson of both of those is no, you cannot, right? When there's a threat out there, you need to confront it and you need to deal with it intelligently. So certainly the way that the mayor acts in terms of suppressing truth and sort of being willfully naive. I will say in subsequent viewings of Jaws, my kind of sympathy or understanding of the mayor has sort of become more nuanced. I mean, he has a line in there where he says, "My kids are on that beach too." Like, I understand the pressures that the mayor is undergoing, right? I mean, I think the movie lays it out well. Like, this is a beach community. But, there is that sort of political spin and cover-up valence to the movie for sure. People have seen a Vietnam War parable in there, that this is like this like messy, especially the second half of the movie where it's just like messy and misguided and brutal. I think that people probably saw some of that.
I mean, 1975, that's
exactly
on the nose.
Yep.
Obviously, like politicians covering things up, people not knowing what to trust with politicians. We're living in the Watergate era here. Could you see a Cold War communism thing going on here where it's like this unseen lurking paranoia about an enemy that's out there? Maybe there's some of that. And then I think, and I very much buy this, Jaws is in many ways basically a movie about kind of like different types of men, right? And when in Brody, Quint, and Hooper, you kind of have like a representation of all the clashing male archetypes and how they react when they are put under pressure. So that's why I think it's such a rich text, in addition to being a really fun movie. But like, do any of those strike you, especially given the kind of 1975-ness of it all?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that the idea that nobody is looking out for the public good and the people who are looking out for the public good aren't being listened to. This is also the era of public interest litigation against chemical companies and tobacco companies and all of these different parts of American life, whether it's the military or the president or corporations that are just conspiring against the public and using the public as fodder, whether it's in the front lines of Vietnam or whether it's, huffing lead from gasoline, whatever, that nobody's caring about the public interest, and the people who are the whistleblowers get smacked down. Feels very resonant.
I teach a history and film class, and one of the things I always ask my students is like, who is the monster? Because the monster represents the things in society that people are most afraid of, but that people also want to sort of like bury or suppress. And so like, I feel like Jaws, or just the shark itself, is so representative of things that people either don't want in society or are trying to cut off from society or marginalize or weaponize or whatever. So who is the monster, to me, is always like one of the most important questions in a thriller type film.
Right. And then also, how do different personality types react to it, right? And that's one of the brilliant things of this movie. It just has 3 to 5 different people who all just kind of react in different ways. There's lessons in all of them, and there's sympathy for all of them in many ways, I would say, too. I like, NIki, you're kind of couching this a little bit in the kind of like reform litigation era. Matt Hooper, Richard Dreyfuss's character, who's the kind of like, righteous nerd. It's almost like Ralph Nader, in a sense, in this movie. I hadn't put that together quite that way. I heard someone say, that basically, like, when it comes to the tropes of masculinity seen in this movie, that basically inside every man there is a Boy Scout, an overconfident nerd, and a drunk lunatic. And Jaws
That is in line with my experience, yes.
And Jaws kind of lays all those 3 out in separate characters and then puts them all on a boat together under intense amounts of pressure, and you see what happens.
Love it.
Yeah. One last thing that's worth pointing out is, the book that Jaws was based on, which only came out a couple years before, by all counts, I haven't read it, but by all counts, was actually much more cynical about kind of government and the mayor and cover-ups. And actually, like, I think some key characters don't make it in it because of their flaws. But, it is worth pointing out that, this is what makes Spielberg good. He knew how to kind of take all these ideas and still have them there, but also just turned it into an absolute kind of rip-roaring phenomenon.
We should also say that everyone from the author of that book to Steven Spielberg have apologized for their depiction of
sharks.
They're like, I'm sorry, sharks. We didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah, and regretted.
You're the good guys.
I think in hindsight, if they had made the same film, but let's say instead of a shark, it's like some water alien. You know what I mean? Something that's like not really mythical or something like that. Maybe we would have had a different response about beaches.
I don't think we would have had the same movie. I just don't know. I think like it was such a brilliant choice, And obviously, like, Spielberg a little later does that with, he does it with aliens, but he also does it with dinosaurs, right? And we don't encounter dinosaurs in day to day, but we still felt very scared. But I don't think, as much as Jurassic Park was a phenomenon and imprinted upon, kids who saw it, I don't think kids were walking down the street worried that a dinosaur was going to come out of nowhere, or like getting into a swimming pool in the backyard of someone's house and thinking, oh my God, there might be a shark in this, in the way that I think people were in the wake of Jaws.
Oh, yeah.
It's more like what Steven Spielberg did for clowns and It.
Yeah.
Oh,
exactly.
Man.
Yeah.
Terrified. Still don't like clowns.
Don't like it.
But again, I think it's both, right? It's creating that villain, but also tapping into something that was already sort of there, I think. So, yeah, that's what makes him very good at what he does.
Yes.
That and cocaine.
Yes. Has the reputation of sharks shifted at all? And do you think, as we hit this 50th anniversary, is there going to be a more nuanced conversation, or is this going to set off another round of overhyped shark fears?
I think it's really changed. I think people think sharks are cool now. I think Shark Week has had a lot to do with this, right? It's given like all of this content about how amazing sharks are. Again, left and right shark. I think Baby Shark had a big impact. And then I think just like the turn toward conservation and a kind of climate change environmentalism that sees sharks as part of this ecosystem that's being destroyed. I just feel like there's much more sympathy and fascination with sharks than there is fear.
Yes. And you see that even now, like with tourism, where you can like swim with the sharks and all of that stuff. But I do think maybe it's getting a better PR, at least among kids. I think Baby Shark, for Halloween one year, I was Mama Shark and Coco was Baby Shark. And like, it's just cute. It's just fun. Yeah. Like, I don't know that, like rats for me will never get that, I will
even
never
Ratatouille didn't do it.
Ratatouille didn't do it. It did it for me.
No way.
Templeton in Charlotte's Web.
No, sorry.
You remind me, Nikki, of that one of my absolute favorite lines from 30 Rock, where Tracy Jordan says, "Live every week like it's Shark Week."
Yes. I think of that line all the time.
All the time. But, maybe let's leave it with a quote from Kevin McLean, who's the executive director of the Chatham Orpheum Theater, which is the theater in the beach town that Jaws is set in. And he says, we used to play Jaws every summer and people would be scared and come out of it fearing of sharks. And he's like, now if you yell shark on the 4th of July, instead of people panicking, they're going to run to the beach and try and see the shark, and I think that is a good example of how the attitudes have changed. Mm-hmm. All right, folks, there it is. 50 years of Jaws. Go see the movie again. If you haven't, go check out the other many brilliant podcasts and other conversations that break it down as a film. But that is a little bit of the larger political and cultural context. Nicole Hemmer, thanks to you as always.
Thank you, Jody.
And Kellie Carter-Jackson, thanks to you.
My pleasure.
Radiotopia.